This is George. George is important. We like George. George has fancy clothes. We like clothes. George rides a horse. Horses are cool. George kills dragons. Wait, what? No, he doesn't. Or does he? Find out today why this coin is perfect for any collector or stacker of silver here on the Culture of Currency. Today we cover what may be at the top of my list of mass-produced bullion coins. Though I have no idea how many are minted, I'm fairly sure it's at least over 100,000, so you need to get at least one of these for your stack or collection. Not convinced? Let's find out why. First, we need to meet George and understand why this is such an iconic image so we know the real weight of this coin, which is steeped in folklore, culture, history, and yes, dragons. This George fellow is so important that he even transcends modern religious norms, and his banner is flown all around the world in various forms, including the flag of England. Let's talk about the fellow, and then let's dive into this coin. As often is the case in historic events of the past, we find ourselves with a blend of evidence and tradition which leads to a checkered history of George. What we can assume from my reading is that George was born in modern-day Turkey in an area that many people would describe as Anatolia. This would have been around the year 303 AD, which is very important as a time in the Roman Empire. It is said that he was a soldier in the Roman army under the ruler Diocletian. It is this ruler who created the opportunity of fate for George, as Diocletian wanted to suppress Christianity, where George as a Christian did not denounce the faith after being tortured in various ways, leading to his martyrdom. George was publicly paraded and beheaded for not denouncing Christianity. Some documents suggest that he was subjected to over 20 forms of torture lasting 7 years. One document suggests that in the 7-year span, over 40,000 pagans converted to Christianity, including an empress of Alexandria, who eventually was also martyred. This extreme story of withstanding the worst of humanity and holding to faith is what has led to George becoming what is known as a megalo-martyr. He has been canonized as a saint in many different areas of Christianity, and what's more impressive is that this man has also been important to Islam, not just Christianity. In Islamic tradition, George was around as the last of the original followers of Jesus walked the earth, and being a direct line, had opposed the erecting of a statue of Apollo in his area. He pleaded with the king and was tortured and imprisoned, where he was helped by angels until the city fell and he was martyred. He is considered a prophet in Islamic tradition. This is one of the only people that I can think of after the ending of what we would consider the standard Bible's book of Revelation that are held both as a saint in Christianity and a prophet in Islam. Maybe George can be a bridge between these two world religions one day. So this is a little bit about George from a historic standpoint. What about the dragon? After reading a bit on this, I've come to see that there are various versions of this story that are mostly the same, but a little different at times. Some people think that George eliminated all dragons from England, but I'm not sure about this from a geographical and timeline sense. To sum up what the most consistent stories state, we have an area in the Mediterranean most often to be sighted around a city in Libya. It is told that a foul beast, often described as a dragon, spewed venom and would cause much panic in the city. In order to quell the demands of the dragon, the city would offer 2 sheep as tribute. Eventually, the sheep were not enough, so a lottery was formed to offer human sacrifice. Eventually, the lottery landed on the king's daughter. He did not want his daughter to go, but the village insisted because it was fair. The king had to send his daughter to be eaten by the dragon, but the king then offered a reward for someone to take her place. No one did. So there are many accounts of what happened next, but it would seem that George arrived and tried to rescue her, and the beast arose. This is where the battle started and ended with George killing the beast. The most popular image of this fatal blow is one of George on horseback with either a sword or lance striking the dragon. This image is still used all over the world in many different ways. In fact, this image goes back to an ancient time and is called a Thracian horseman. This iconography can be traced back to the 3rd century BC. The legend also states that either due to George killing the beast or George offering the reward money to the poor, many pagans were converted to Christianity. Whether or not these events were true with the dragon, it is folklore as strong as Robin Hood to those in England and honestly throughout Europe and the Mediterranean. Now that you are caught up to speed on this fantastic image, let's dive into this coin and place it on our 60-point scale. When we look at the front, we have the fantastic standard obverse that we've come to know and love from coins like the coat of arms. The checkering of the background has always been one of my favorite small touches. The image of Her Late Majesty fits this coin as it is from the Royal Mint. We have the standard Latin abbreviation in a strong font, which is short for Elizabeth II, Dei Gratia Regina Fidei Defensatrix. I took Latin in high school and hope that my teacher is proud. And this translates to Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen Defender of the Faith, which once again was the role of George to be a defender of the faith. This has always been a fantastic look, so hats off to the engraver Jody Clark for creating this. I think this is a fantastic obverse when one is required to place a queen on a coin. It scores a 7. Now the fun part. We flip to the coin's reverse and we are met with the legendary mythology that so many around the world have learned. Here is the valiant St. George atop his noble steed in a Thracian imagery that goes back to ancient times. George, wielding his lance, delivers a mortal blow to his foe. This image is both historic and epic. Look at the way the background is textured against the shiny raised relief of the image. The artist was also wise enough to show the constricting conflict as both the mouth of the beast and the tail are in positions of danger. What is more interesting is we call George Valiant when he has a spear, although this horse has hoofs, that's about it, and he is well within the reach of the dragon's mouth. I believe this horse deserves to be knighted if such a thing exists. All in all, this is one of my favorite images I have ever seen on a coin. When I saw this in the gold version, I fell in love. When I noticed they were making silver versions, I had to have one. Therefore, this scores a 10. Mintage is where we go to next. This is a coin I cannot find a firm number on. It is my estimation that it is mass-produced, but I have no way of knowing if that means 100,000 or a million. Anytime I have something like this where I don't have firm numbers, the only thing I can do is give it a neutral 5 until I find out. So if any of you know, please let me know in the comments. Now we face cultural significance. We have covered how significant this coin is, both to historical events and common cultural folklore spanning thousands of miles. We also know that the Thracian horse image that eventually was adopted and contributed to many images of St. George is one of the most used throughout Europe. The flag of England that hold the red cross upon a white field is also known as St. George's Cross, and George is the patron saint of England. Therefore, there is no argument I can find that this does not score a 10. For collectability, I am a lover of coins like this, but I have to gauge the marketplace. Does a coin like this meet the needs of stackers and collectors? I think we have an overwhelming yes. We have a highly popular scene paired with one of the fabled images of folklore. This is, in my mind, even cooler than Robin Hood, as we know George was a very real person, though the dragon could be a little bit of a stretch. I seem to get the understanding that the mintage is high, so lower premiums and bulk purchases may be available depending on where you purchase coins, which is an attractive feature to stackers and collectors. This scores a 9, as I cannot seem to think of anyone who would not want this coin. The only detraction is that it doesn't have the lowest mintage. Our last area is uniqueness. We have seen plays on historic themes in coins, which are usually among my favorite. This is a coin from a series that started a couple of years ago, but the imagery does not change year to year, and George and the dragon has been used in many ways. This one does feel a bit unique, as the Thracian horse imagery with the lance is less used by many European coins. We have a scene of St. George and the Dragon in some fashion on many coins, but they usually have a sword, as in the time of 300 AD as a Roman soldier, we would not have seen what seems to be a medieval representation of George. 300 AD, we did not have lances and almost crusade-like medieval attire, so from that standpoint, it does score a 6. Time for my final thoughts on this coin. It scores a 47 out of 60. Due to mintage and uniqueness of theme, this coin misses the mark of being elite by our scale, but these numbers occasionally are just trivial, as this is a coin that I think should be in every single collection. The conversations about the importance of St. George historically and through folklore are endless, and the imagery we are blessed with looking at are among my favorites in the collection. My heart says this coin scores a 58 out of 60, but my skill says 47. Thank you, as always, for watching, and please remember to stay classy and current with the culture of currency.